Good morning. I'm in Durban for some family matters. But yesterday afternoon late, a comrade of mine reminded me that yesterday, the 24th of November, 1983, exactly 40 years ago, I was sentenced for high treason in the Johannesburg South High Court, given a 15-year sentence, and taken to the Pretoria maximum security prison to serve that sentence. It brought many memories flooding back. I was reminded how several months earlier, I was arrested in the middle of the night with an R1 assault rifle being pushed against my forehead. How I was taken to the notorious security police headquarters, John Foster Square, detained in solitary confinement for many months, and severely tortured. Tortured to the point where several times during that period, I feared that I would die. Because of that torture, I lost most of my hearing. And then eventually, on that fateful 24th of November, 1983, I was sentenced by a judge of the old apartheid regime, Mr. Justice Myburgh, after having been prosecuted by one of the henchmen of the apartheid system, Prosecutor Jan Swanepoel. When I posted about these events last night, I posted an extract from a court record where Jan Swanepoel says to me, "Mr. Nyaus, you've been fighting against the apartheid system. You took up arms against the apartheid regime. If you ever manage to get out of prison, will you be prepared to continue that fight? And will you target the then state president, Mr. P.W. Botha?" I answered, absolutely yes, because apartheid is a crime against humanity, because it goes against all the fundamental Christian beliefs that I have, because I believe that apartheid is a heresy. Yes, Mr. Justice Myburgh, I will be prepared to target State President P.W. Botha. And Myburgh, getting very irritated and hot under the collar, said to me, "Young man, you better count your words, because you realize that the charge of high treason carries with it the death sentence. I may just decide to pass the death sentence on you." To which I replied, "Suit yourself, Your Honor." So, I was fortunately not sentenced to death, but I was given a 15-year sentence. And yesterday, when I was thinking about all of this, I couldn't help to be reminded that many, many decades later, in June 2021, I was again arrested, this time in front of the Escort jail, where President Jacob Zuma was illegally being imprisoned on the basis of an illegal decision by the Constitutional Court, and given a 15-year sentence. I was outside the day after President Zuma handed himself over to the prison authorities, busy doing an interview with the SABC television. And while I was live on television, I was suddenly arrested, dragged into a police van. The whole country, the whole nation was watching this on their television screens. As I was in 1983 arrested with the intention to make it as humiliating as possible, so I was arrested in June 2021 with the same intention. And why was that? Because I continued to believe in exactly the same ideals. I had the same commitment. The commitment that liberation in South Africa must be a liberation not just from racism, but also for economic liberation, for the empowerment of the majority of Black and especially African South Africans to gain control over their economic destiny and to be able to scale the heights of the economy. As the majority of Black people in this country, to be in charge of the economy, as it certainly should be. So there I was, once again arrested. And as that police van drove away from the scene where I was arrested, my fellow comrades who were there realized that something terribly is going wrong. This police van was not driving towards the Escort police station. It was driving in the direct opposite direction, into the bushes. And my very alert and vigilant comrades jumped in their cars and followed the police van. They started screaming and shouting from their cars, "What are you doing? Where are you going?" I'm convinced, and my fellow comrades are convinced, that the intention of those police officers were to drive me into the bushes, push me out of the vehicle, claim that I tried to jump out, that I tried to escape, and then shoot me. Very similar modus operandi to how the old apartheid police operated. We know of many examples of anti-apartheid activists, of soldiers of Umkhonto we Sizwe, who were arrested, and then the apartheid security police claimed, well, they tried to escape, we had no other option but to shoot them. Now, my arrest took place at the Escort prison under instruction, direct personal instruction, from the Minister of Police, Mpangazitha, who was sitting in the Pink Hotel here in Umhlanga, the Beverly Hills Hotel, which he turned into his luxurious headquarters when he was presiding over this operation to act against President Jacob Zuma and to get him arrested. He was sitting in the hotel getting irritated by the interview that he saw me doing on SABC TV. He didn't like being told that our judicial system had been captured. He didn't like being told that his police force and he himself are being abused for factional political purposes. He didn't like me saying that President Cyril Ramaphosa must go. So he picked up the phone, phoned the police officers there at the Escort prison and said, "Arrest him." And that's how I was arrested. That's how I was driven into those bushes next to the Escort prison. And yes, after the intervention of my fellow comrades, when they had no other option, how I was eventually taken to the Escort police station and charged under instruction from the Minister of Police. Now I ask myself, and I want you as viewers of this short YouTube video to ask yourselves, what is the difference between that conduct of Bheki Cele and the conduct of apartheid politicians such as Adrian Vlok, who was the Minister of Police under P.W. Botha, who gave instructions for apartheid police to kill anti-apartheid activists, who gave instructions for a bomb to be planted at the headquarters of the South African Council of Churches, Khotso House, to whom the butcher of Vlakplaas reported. What is the difference? I really have a big problem to find any difference. We had an apartheid regime then. We have a new apartheid regime now. We had the manipulation of the legal system and the courts to service the apartheid system. We have the manipulation, the exploitation of our legal services, of our courts and our police force to serve the new apartheid regime that the African National Congress, under the corrupt leadership of Cyril Ramaphosa, had become. It was not only me who had been subjected to this kind of corrupt action, to this kind of illegal targeting by the judicial system of those who are perceived to be the opponents of Cyril Ramaphosa. May I remind you what happened with President Jacob Zuma, how he was arraigned. May I remind you also of the 23 years of so-called arms deal charges that had been brought against President Zuma through a continuing process of manipulation by the NPA. And all the time, the propaganda is pouring out from the mainstream white monopoly capitalist media, vilifying the man, destroying his image in the public domain. What happened with Comrade Ace Magashule, who was arrested and charged on the most flimsy of oversight charges, who for months had to wait for any docket on the charges against him to be produced? What happened with Bongani Bongo, who after he was charged was found not guilty by Mr. Justice John Slope because the case had absolutely no merit? What is happening right now with the case of Comrade Sandile Gumede, where the evidence, the information is not there, where those who lead the evidence say, we're sorry, we don't have it, we lost it, it got destroyed somehow, somewhere. The whole thing is falling apart. And then, of course, during the last week, what happened with Machelu Koko? He was arrested, he was charged for all kinds of apparently very serious charges of corruption and all kinds of terrible things. And yet the NPA could not produce a docket. And eventually the magistrate had to say, I cannot have a case here in front of me without any docket, without any substantiation of the charges. I'm scrapping these charges of the roll of the court. Now, what is happening here? Charges are being brought. Those who are charged are being humiliated in public. They appear on the front pages of our newspapers, breaking news on our television news channels. They called every and any possible name. The public out there who do not have any other source of information but this mainstream media dishing up this non-existent charges but making them sound as terrible as possible. believe that you are dealing here with the most horrible criminals. The damage to their image in society, to their name, to their families, is immense and irreparable. They get removed from positions, from jobs. They end up not being able to contest elections in political parties, such as what happened with Ace Magashule, when he was forced out of his position as Secretary General of the ANC and was not able to even attend the 55th National Conference of the ANC. When we react against such injustice, when we call it out, when we say that the justice system is captured, then the internal party disciplinary structures of the African National Congress kicked into place. Said, well, our NEC took a resolution that we cannot say that our judicial system is captured. You are breaking that resolution. Doesn't matter what the facts tell us, you are breaking that resolution. Therefore, we are charging you now, in addition to the charges that you are faced with in a court of law, also with disciplinary charges in the ANC. And we rush those charges through because we want to expel you. We're using those original flimsy, unsubstantiated, so-called criminal charges that had been brought against you, which led to you reacting, which led to you defending yourself, which led to you describing the true reality of what is going on in this country. And that description that you give, we then use against you in a second layer of charges through our National Disciplinary Committee. And in that way, we get rid of you once and for all. That's how I was treated. That's how Comrade Ace Magashule was treated. And then eventually, when these flimsy charges that do not hold any water can no longer stand in the courts where they have been brought, where we've been arraigned, and it is impossible for the officers of the court, the magistrates or the judges, to allow this farce to continue. And they have to eventually rule that there is no case against you, or they have to scrap the matter off the roll because there is no docket that substantiate these so-called charges. Then the media, the mainstream media, do not find it newsworthy. They hardly report about it. But they did report in big, flashing headlines when you were arrested and charged. Then you were already sentenced as this ogre and criminal. But when the charges are dropped, silence reigns. And when they can no longer escape having to say something, and they say, well, as they do in the case of Machelo Koko, well, you know, it's been scrapped off the roll, but it may still come back. They may still bring those substantial charges. We cannot yet say that the man is off the hook. Go and read the Mail and Guardian of last Friday. The propaganda, the spin, the manipulation. It's amazing. But not a question about the injustice that had been done to Machelo Koko, or the injustice that had been done to President Jacob Zuma and Bongani Bongo. No. Whatever losses you suffered, whatever employment you got kicked out of, whatever hundreds of thousands, in fact millions of rands, you had to spend on legal fees to defend yourself. Tough luck. That's how the cookie crumbled. And in the meantime, this fascist dictator, Cyril Ramaphosa, continues on his merry way, getting rid of one opponent after the other by abusing the legal system, by arraigning non-existent flimsy charges, by destroying people's careers and inflicting immense damage on their families and their children. When I was arrested at Escort prison, a couple of days after my arrest, my second oldest daughter, Kanya, came home crying. She said her best friend no longer can play with her. And when I inquired and said, "But why?" She said, "No, my friend's dad said that my dad is a criminal, that he was arrested. She cannot play with the child of a criminal." Now that's just one small example of what is being done to families. I'm sure that Ntelo Koko, Bongani Bongo, Ace Magashule, Sandile Gumede, of course, President Jacob Zuma, will be able to give many examples of the harm that it inflicted on family and children. This is harm that can never be undone. It is viciousness that can never be corrected again. And then when one lashes out, when one speaks out, when you say, "This is wrong, this is new apartheid fascism, this is abuse of the law, this is inhumane," then you get told, "Oh, you're just an angry man." Now, perhaps I need to deal with this issue of anger. Would I not be entitled to be angry about having been arrested for nothing? You were so glib in sitting there in front of your computer or on your smartphone, typing away on social media. Oh, you are just angry. If it had happened to you, you wouldn't have been angry. It would not have hurt you. It would not have hurt your family. It wouldn't have disturbed you to lose your job. It wouldn't have disturbed you when you lost your home, when your family could not be taken care of properly. You see, this thing of saying, people are just angry, it's a lot of nonsense. Justified anger is correct. And anger at injustice is correct. Anger at the destruction of other human beings' lives, their livelihood and their futures, on the basis of blatant, fabricated lies, is correct. So yes, I dedicated personally 44 years of my life to the liberation struggle in South Africa. On the 24th of November 1983, I was sentenced to 15 years of imprisonment for that ideal. In June 2021, I was once again arrested, this time through the intervention of the political party, the so-called National Liberation Movement, that I joined in 1979, for whose membership and activities that I carried out, I was arrested, detained, tortured, and imprisoned. That very same party made sure that I was arrested again. And for what? For nothing, absolutely nothing else, but for the same ideals for which I was arrested on the 24th of November, 1983. So do I have a reason? Does Machalo Koko have a reason? Does Sandile Gumede and Jacob Zuma have reasons to be absolutely peeved off and angry? Yes, absolutely so. But of course, ultimately our conduct and our behavior should not be determined by our anger. While we are correct and right to be righteously angry and fuming at injustice. But our conduct must be driven and informed by the commitment that made us join the liberation struggle in South Africa in the first place. The commitment for justice for all the people of South Africa, especially black and especially Africa. The commitment to make sure that this economy will be in the hands of a majority of black and African people. That the young black South Africans who today are faced with the curse of unemployment, often fearing that they do not have a future, will be empowered and will be able to have a future. So yes, I'm angry. But ultimately my actions are informed by my ideals, by my liberation ideology, by my unwavering belief that the same ideals for which I joined the liberation struggle in 1979 are still worth making the sacrifices for that I'm doing right now. So I'm sitting here in a hotel room in Umhlanga. That same young lady, my daughter Kanya, who cried when her best friend said, "I cannot any longer be your friend because my dad says your dad is a criminal, he's a bad man." That same young lady, the last week, had to be operated on because of an infection that could have spread to her brain. A very dangerous condition. I came to visit her. I came to be with her because my child stood by me. My child faced with me the pain of my arrest and imprisonment, the consequences of her losing a friend. My child gave me love. I came to share with her and support her during her difficult time. Because you see, ultimately, despite all the inhumanity, despite all the evil, despite all the intention to destroy, it is for us to take decisions that will make it possible for us to continue to be full human beings, to continue to care for our families, to continue to love, to be there as fathers and mothers, to fight those who want to destroy our ability to be fathers and mothers, not because we are criminals, but because we are committed to justice. So I will fight. I will fight for the sake of Kanya, for the sake of my oldest daughter, Helen, for the sake of my young boy, 6-year-old Nkanyezi. I will fight. I will be angry at the injustices that are being committed against the people of this country. I will be angry at the pain that had been inflicted on my own family, on my wife and my children. I will be driven by my ideals. And Cyril Ramaphosa, let me give you notice. You can throw at me what you want. You can try to destroy me. You can do what you've done to Marcelo Koko, to Sandile Gumede, to Ace Magashule, to President Jacob Zuma, to Bongani Bongo. You can try what you want. This man is not for the turning. I said in front of the escort prison that you must go. I said you're a criminal. I said you are a shame and a disgust and a disgrace to the liberation struggle. I repeat it today again. And you, Beki Kele, please get your knickers in another knot. Blow your top. Instruct another arrest. Do whatever you want. This man is not for the turning. For you guys, I will come. You, I will fight. In anger of injustice and in commitment that the reason why I joined the national liberation struggle 44 years ago, that commitment to full justice, that reason still drives me. Every morning when I get out of bed, every night when I go to bed, there will be no compromise. There will be no this way or that way. No turning around. In me, you have an impeccable enemy. A luta continua.